Welcome into another episode of the official Colts Podcast here on the Colts Audio Network and on the Colts YouTube page. I'm JJ Stankevitz in the hot seat for Matt Taylor, who's announcing that Sting and Billy Joel are coming to Indianapolis.
Yeah, why did they not have you, JJ?
Because Matt Taylor is a much bigger music fan than me. He's better at that job than I can be.
All right.
What is Sting? I don't know what that is.
It's like, who is the
Play
Edge?
us on.
What is Slash? Who are these people? Well, I will be the first to say, you know what? It's kind of refreshing seeing you in here, JJ.
Hey, thanks.
I feel like Bill and I have said this, we aren't going to admit it too loud, but there are times where we feel like kind of we're the backups there on Thursday. So we're part of the starting crew here.
I'd like to think that you guys are coming out of the bullpen.
We're like the closers,
right? You got your middle reliever. You got your lefty specialist, which doesn't exist anymore. And then we go to the closer. Got Mayte pulling the strings.
All right, I'll take that.
Okay, there we go. All right, well, this is the official Colts Podcast. Again, that's Casey Vallier. That's Bill Brooks. I'm JJ Stankevitz. We got a lot to get into previewing Colts and Steelers on Sunday at Lucas Oil Stadium. Let's start here just with some injury updates. Case the Colts, as we're recording this, we have not got the Thursday injury report. Right. But on Wednesday, Kwity Paye did not practice with a quad. Kenny Moore II did not practice with a hip. Braden Smith did not practice with a knee.
Right.
If any of those guys were to miss this game, whose absence maybe would be felt the most, Casey?
Man, that's a loaded one because with Braden Smith, you know that T.J. Watt is typically going to line up right
90% of the time.
90% of the time. Now, last year in the meeting, Braden was not out there, so Blake Freeland got that role. This year, it looks like Matt Gonzalez is going to be that guy. So if that is this position, it's hey, welcome to the NFL here, rookie moment. So I would say it's a mix between Braden, but you also know what Kenny does just from the veteran. Everything about it, and this is not a stab at the Steelers' offensive weapons, but as far as their receiving output, you really like what Kenny can offer in, a little bit more of that pass rush game too, because I think in a way this offense isn't as threatening down the field as maybe you would see with some of the, like even with Chicago last week. So I feel like Kenny can kind of impact the game in multiple ways. Kwity is always going to be a big loss, but the depth up front, you can kind of see that filled with a couple other guys. So I would say it's kind of a toss-up between Braden and Kenny for me.
All right, I want to ask this question before we get into the Steelers preview, and also an interview I did with Trey Sermon that we're gonna have in here to the Colts running back. Bill, is Jonathan Taylor the Colts' most important player right now?
I would say yes, and the reason I say that is because, anytime you have a running game, a solid running game, teams have to be aware of that. And your running game, from an offensive standpoint, one, you can control the line of scrimmage if you run the ball very well. You can wear out a defense, time of possession, one of the things that we have lacked in this year. So I would say that having a good running game can do that. And then also it helps set up the play action pass down the field, which you can utilize your wide receivers and your tight ends and things like that. And then with Anthony Richardson trying to, he's going to go improve, okay? Hasn't played as well last week as he wanted to play, and I think if he can continue to work at it and get better, he will help the team. But until that time comes, you have a Jonathan Taylor who can make the big plays, keep you in games, and he can have those explosive plays as well. So I think Jonathan Taylor plays a big part in this offense, and he can do a lot. I mean, you see how he runs the ball. He runs the ball with some power. He's fast, he's quick, he's patient running the ball, he hits the holes, and that's what you want in a running back, and someone that that can help control the line of scrimmage as far as the offensive players are concerned and run the ball and get some first downs for you. So I think right now at this point, yes, Jonathan Taylor is probably the most important player on the offensive side of the ball.
Casey, given the way the NFL has gone over the last probably 3 seasons, where you've seen this rise of these too high shells, where teams are saying we are not going to let you throw the ball over our heads,
right?
And now you're seeing more and more light boxes. So I looked this up, and I'm kind of like an advanced stat nerd. EPA per play, it's not the Environmental Protection Agency, but expected points added per play. Runs are still significantly less efficient than passes. But passing EPA went from 2017 through 2021, it was positive. So every time you drop back to pass, you're getting positive EPA. Now, from 2022 to 2024, it's been negative every year.
Really? Okay.
Every time you drop back to pass, you have negative EPA. Run plays are still also negative. But in the absence of these explosive passing offenses, like you don't see the Monday night Rams-Chiefs game from 2018, those 54-51.
Yeah.
You don't see that anymore.
Yeah.
In the absence of that, you're seeing this kind of renaissance of running backs of, hey, it's important to go pay Saquon Barkley. It's important to go pay Jonathan Taylor. Having that weapon within your offense, you have a running back who can generate explosive plays, who can get more yards than are blocked up to be on a play. You study the league, you see around it. Having that guy seems to be critically important now.
It's so ironic because the NFL, a lot of times it comes back to its roots. Like there's outliers always, and the running back market over the last couple of years has been brutal. I mean, you've got your top guys. Jonathan's clearly in that. He got paid as that. It makes sense. But think about just a running back that we saw last week in DeAndre Swift. He didn't get a massive contract when it comes to some of your other key positions. And, he is probably, this year his numbers are down for sure. We saw what happened last week. But it shows the importance of that position. And kind of going back to what you talk about with Saquon Barkley, he's having kind of that resurgence in Philadelphia. And Jonathan Taylor is clearly right now looking more like the Jonathan Taylor we saw when he busted off for 1,800 yards, which is only a benefit. We talk about, you ask if he's the most important player. All of that plays into it. Anthony Richardson's going to be better. The defense is going to be better. Your receivers are going to be better. Your offense is going to be better when Jonathan Taylor is playing that way.
I actually think JT looks better than he did in 2021. It's different, right?
Absolutely.
2021 JT, he had some of that patience and some of that vision. But now he's in year 5 in the NFL. It looks like he's you hear a lot about how Josh Allen, right? Josh Allen came into the league as the Bills quarterback, and he was just big guy, throw it hard, throw it far. And now you're seeing Josh Allen operate things and manipulate things like he's Drew freaking Brees, but with the arm that he has. You're seeing a little bit of that with Jonathan Taylor, where you can tell he understands exactly what defenses are trying to do to him. He understands exactly how a play is supposed to be blocked up. And he is able to get, if a play is blocked up for 5 yards, he'll get you 20. That is so important when explosive plays are down across the NFL. He can generate them because of his ability to get more than what's blocked.
I'm glad you brought that up because he talked about that in the locker room today. He talked about his patience. It all goes back to his film study. Now, I'm not saying that 3 years ago he didn't watch film, but as you grow in the league, the way what you're looking for changes. The way you kind of take in your film just continues to expand. You mature and all of that. So part of it, he mentions it like, yeah, I know what a defensive tendency is going to be, what this side, these corners over here, what they do, what these linebackers do. I know how I can be patient if the run's going here, and I know that I can bust it that way. So he broke it down with not necessarily watching his film or running back's film. It's almost like I'm watching just what a defense does on certain run plays to know how they react if I change it up. And that, you talk about maturity there. You're probably on point saying there are times where he looks better than he did then, because this Jonathan Taylor, man, you can win a lot of football games playing like this.
Bill, if the Colts have to figure out ways to win while Anthony Richardson is developing, it seems like having Jonathan Taylor and the offensive line that they've got right now. And by the way, it's not just the line, it's the tight ends.
Yes.
Those guys are
exactly.
Mo Alley-Cox, Drew Ogletree, Kylan Gregson, they are doing a fantastic job. If you look at it by Pro Football Focus grade, the Colts offensive line and tight end groups combined have the highest PFF run blocking grade in the NFL. It's at like 4 points ahead of the next team. It's significant.
That's good.
How can you lean into that identity where, okay, maybe Anthony, he's got to get the footwork cleaned up a little bit, but you know what? If we hand it off to Jonathan Taylor and we use Anthony's legs, how can you lean into that identity early in a season to then maybe later in a year be later in the year to be able to kind of pivot and start throwing it a little bit more?
Well, that's going to be your bread and butter as far as that identity, as far as we're going to run the ball, and the offensive line is going to set the tone up front against a defensive front, and we're going to make sure we just pound the ball, and we have a running back that can get us those tough yards. But as you said, being patient, he can break a 25-yard, 30-yard run, and that's in a big explosive play. It's not the pass play that maybe we're looking for, that we want to see from Anthony Richardson throwing the ball down the field to Ashton Doolin or Alec Pierce or Michael Pittman or Josh Downs, something like that. But it's a big explosive play on offense that keeps you excited and keeps you confident that, hey, we can play in this game and we can win this game if we don't throw a big explosive play down the field. So our running backs are important. JT is important, and it's that the offensive line. It's a mentality knowing that we can impose our will on a defense by just running the ball, and we have one of the best running backs in the backfield to do that.
I mean, Jonathan Taylor probably can be a bell cow for this team, but you're going to need Trey Sermon, who
yes.
We're going to get to our interview with him coming up here in a little bit. You are going to need someone to spell him. I think Anthony Richardson can spell him a little bit in terms of that. But I talked about this on the podcast a couple weeks ago, that JT's kind of been a slow starter in his career. Mm-hmm. There's nothing slow about this start. He's off.
No.
He's got 261 yards, 5.1 yards per carry. Those are numbers that if he can sustain those, we're talking about another remarkable season out of him. It's still early, but the way the line's blocking, the way the tight ends are blocking, we could see something here.
5.1 is impressive.
And he was at 5.5 in 2021.
Yeah,
that's nuts.
I know.
Like when you think back on it, that is ridiculous.
Yes.
And if you look at one of the hot topics we've talked about over the last couple of weeks is the time of possession. And I know that, it doesn't paint the full picture. There's a time, if you're getting a bunch of explosive plays, time of possession is going to be skewed a little bit. But I know that, the coaching staff has mentioned it, and Jonathan Taylor's one of the answers to that.
Yep.
The sustaining drives of what he is able to offer if you can continue to give him the football. Like we saw it a couple weeks ago against Green Bay, he had a great game, but you kind of had to shift the game plan based on. So I think ultimately you talk about him being a slow starter, and that's not the case at all now. And now I think ultimately you've seen the way he started, and you're going to rely heavily on him.
All right. Well, I had a chance to catch up with Trey Sermon in the just outside the Colts locker room actually today. A guy who's in the backfield with Jonathan Taylor, who can provide some really interesting perspective on JT, also on Justin Fields. Got into that a little bit.
That's right. Play
Ohio
State.
So
Yes.
There you go. Take a listen. Myself with Trey Sermon. All right, joined here on the official Colts podcast by Colts running back Trey Sermon. Trey, you got your first touchdown in a Colts uniform last week against the Bears. Kind of a fun one with all the pushing and shoving. I'm just curious, when you went back and you watched the film of that and you saw Anthony come in behind you and start pushing, what do you respect about Anthony Richardson's willingness to do whatever he can to win a football game in that manner?
I respect it a lot, That's just a testament to the type of player he is. He's a great teammate, and, he's just trying to find a way for us to win. So if that means push me in the end zone, as you can see, he won't hesitate.
For you to get that moment, to score your first touchdown since 2021, what does it say about the work you put in over these years to stick in the NFL, find your spot here in Indy and get that moment for you?
It really shows a lot. My motto is, control what I can control, and that's just how I prepare, how I come to work each and every day. And, it paid off, getting that first touchdown. It's definitely been a while, but, there's definitely more work to be done, and, I know the sky's the limit.
What's this journey been like for you, going from third-round pick, in San Francisco to going to Philly, getting linked up with Shane, getting picked up here, just the ups and downs of it, to now kind of become established here in Indy?
Yeah, it's been a great journey, I don't regret anything because I know that it made me the player that I am today. And, just the will to fight. I've really figured out a lot about myself over the years and, just continue to grow and just be the best player I can be.
But what's something you did figure out about yourself throughout all those moves and, going from San Francisco to Philly to Indy?
Really just how to have the right mindset, you know. I mean, with all the changes, it was tough. But, you know, at the end of the day, I have to show up every single day ready to work, despite the situation, whatever, you know, situation I'm in. I mean, I still have to come to work and perform.
All right, on the opposing sideline this week with the Pittsburgh Steelers, it's your old college teammate, Justin Fields. What's your favorite Justin Fields memory from the 1 year you guys spent together in 2020 at Ohio State?
I'd probably have to say my favorite memory was against Michigan State when he ran down the field and made the block for me to get in the end zone. that was probably by far the best moment, because we always had a thing that if one of us break free, we're going to try to outrun the other person, and he got me.
What do you think his 40 time would have? Because I don't think he did the combine, right?
No, he didn't. He's easily a 4.3 guy.
Uh-huh. Yeah. Well, to be able to see him up close for the time that you did, and now to see him in Pittsburgh, where he's having a lot of success. The Steelers are 3-0. I don't think he's maybe only got one turnover. He's throwing the ball at a high completion percentage. Are you surprised at all he's having the success he's having in Pittsburgh right now?
No, I'm not surprised at all. I mean, I know Justin. He's a hard worker, and he always was going to try to find a way to win. And, you know, I'm glad that, you know, he's in a good situation and, you know, doing the best to help his team.
We were talking about it before we came on, that 6-touchdown game he had in the Sugar Bowl against Clemson. Like, you're there in the backfield. You're having a ton of success on the ground. But do you remember just, like, being in awe of a performance like that at some point, just watching Justin work like that?
Oh, yeah, for sure. I mean, definitely, you know, if I'm in pass protection or running a swing route and I just see him just throw a dart, I mean, just the ball placement, the accuracy, I wouldn't say I was shocked, but I was just like, man, like he's having a day. So, you know, it was good to see that.
Coming to the present now, running behind this offensive line you got here in Indy, what sort of how do they help you out as a running back, just in terms of knowing they're going to sustain their blocks, knowing they're going to strain, they're going to finish, and set you up for success as a running back?
It's a great feeling. I mean, you know, I feel like we have the best offensive line in the entire NFL. And, you know, they make our job easy. All we have to do is just be patient and just let them do their thing. But, you know, it's a great feeling just being behind those guys. I mean, you know, they create a lot of lanes for us, and, you know, they make our job easy.
You're working with one of the most patient running backs in the NFL, in Jonathan Taylor. I think I counted 3 seconds he was behind the line of scrimmage on a run that went for 21 against the Bears. How is he able to be as patient as he is as a running back?
Really just understanding the scheme and the defense, and, you know, just really letting things develop. I feel like he's done a great job of that really his entire career. But this year, you know, it's really on full display. I mean, it's a good thing to see, and, you know, I'm constantly picking up new things from JT, kind of picking his brain, what's making him so successful. But I mean, again, he's just one of the most patient guys in the league, and I'm glad to be in the room with him. All
right, you're going on year 4 in the NFL. Mm-hmm. When people come up to you and they say, hey, Trey, like, what's something about playing in the NFL that, like, you can't understand unless you play in the NFL? Think about that. What's something that, like, unless you play in the league, you can't understand, you can't get?
I'd really just have to say, you know, just the atmosphere. I mean, it's a lot different from a college setting. I mean, that's really all there is to it. Like, it's nothing like, you know, game day on Sunday. I mean, just walking out that tunnel, it's a different feeling that I've got than playing in college, even in, like, some of those big games.
Right.
Like, it's nothing like it.
So you played in Big Ten championships at Lucas Oil Stadium. You played at Oklahoma. You played at Ohio State. But what about it? Is it just like a feeling that you can't even describe, of just like being in the NFL and playing on a Sunday?
Yeah, it's definitely the feeling. I mean, it is hard to explain, but I just know it's way different, again, than playing in college.
For you, last year, that Steelers game was kind of a coming out party for Colts fans to get to know how you ran, the style you can run with. What did that game do for you, just kind of getting the success here in Indy for you personally?
I feel like it did a lot for me. Not to say that I never had confidence in myself. I always did, but just going out there, being able to perform at a high level, it just gave me that reassurance that, you know, once I get my opportunity, I know I can just go ahead and take full advantage of it and just kind of get in that rhythm. I mean, again, that's the thing with a running back. You get in the rhythm, I mean, you'll definitely find a lot of success.
All right, well, looking forward to you having a lot more success this year here at the Colts. Trey Sermon joining us here on the official Colts podcast. All right, thanks again to Trey Sermon for taking some time out of his day. Talking about Justin Fields and the undefeated Pittsburgh Steelers, I think you kind of have to start, you don't start at the quarterback here, you start at the head coach. And Casey, we were just laughing before we came back on here that some people in Pittsburgh thought, is this the end of the Mike Tomlin era last year? They went 10-7 and made the playoffs with Kenny Pickett and Mitch Trubisky as their quarterbacks. Now they've got another Chicago Bears cast-off quarterback.
Yeah, right.
They're undefeated. Their defense is averaging 8 points a game. Mike Tomlin, 8.
Yes.
Mike Tomlin, over his 17 full seasons as Steelers head coach, you probably know this by now if you're listening to this, he's never been below 500 in his career. He's only 52.
Yeah.
He's 11th in NFL history with 176 wins. Bill, when Mike Tomlin's career is over, which could be in 20 years,
Right, yeah.
we're going to be talking about him as one of the best coaches ever, right? If we're not doing that already.
By far. You have to talk about him as one of the best coaches in the National Football League's history because of what he's done. I mean, just his record right now as far as never having a losing season in 17 seasons, I think that's great. But what's more important to me is what he gets out of his team. A lot of times he doesn't have the best athletes on his team. He doesn't have the best players. Yes, T.J. Watt is very good. Don't get me wrong. He is one of the better players in the National Football League. But over the years, he has injuries. The quarterbacks aren't maybe the top level quarterbacks that you're looking for, but he gets the most out of his team every single year. He knows what buttons to push. He motivates them to be ready to play, and they play a certain style. And that style is to play physical. And that's the Pittsburgh Steelers style. That's their thing they hang their hat on is we're going to play physical football. And usually what we're going to do is the offense is going to be good enough to keep us out of trouble, but we're going to win the game on defense. And they play a good defense, very physical. They get after you. They, of course, keep you from scoring. Usually they win a time of possession because they like to run the ball themselves. And usually a lot of offenses are 3 and out or maybe 4 or 5 plays, and that's it. He has a formula, and no one can replicate that formula right now because he wins football games. I mean, he is one of the best coaches in the National Football League.
It's wild to think that, you know, the Pittsburgh Steelers, one of the most storied franchises, have had 3 coaches.
Since the merger.
3 coaches. Mm-hmm. Chuck Noll, arguably one of the greatest. Bill Cowher, a great coach. And now Mike Tomlin. I mean, it truly is remarkable. And I grew up, my dad is a Steelers fan because when he was here, there was no team. You had to pick somebody. So I have heard about, you know, how great the Pittsburgh's, but you can't deny it. I mean, Mike Tomlin is the cream of the crop. I mean, he's so good. And last year, as we mentioned before, we were kind of laughing about it, but I truly was like, what is wrong with their fans thinking that this might truly be we got to get rid of it.
Do you know how good you have it?
I mean,
with Mike Tomlin? Seriously.
It's unbelievable. I mean, 17 seasons, you've never had a losing. I mean, that's typically probably 1 every 3 years.
Yeah.
Every NFL team probably has a down year.
Also, everyone wants to be on the, you should tank and get a high draft pick train until you're actually on it.
Exactly.
And then you go through the 2022 season like we had here. That was not a fun year.
No.
You see, that's a great point because it's almost like back in the day with Brady and Belichick. Like, you deal with having that late round pick and you just establish a culture, you establish a style that you get players to buy into that and it elevates everybody's play, and that's what Mike Tomlin has done.
Ryan Kelly brought it up this week in the locker room. He's like, sometimes it doesn't even matter who puts the helmet on for them. They're going to play the Steeler way. They're going to play to a certain standard. And, I mean, you know that Mike Tomlin sets that standard.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, so much respect for him.
Yeah.
Again, no one's surprised that the Steelers are undefeated right now. They're rolling into town with a 3-0 record because Mike Tomlin's their coach. Of course they are. Of course they're going to win 10 games. And, I mean, they made the playoffs last year.
Right.
Again, they made the playoffs last year.
I mean,
Like, they just get the most out of their players. Like I said, I mean, outside of Ben Roethlisberger, as far as a quarterback, to me, their quarterback situation usually is in flux. Don't know what's going to happen on their team, but he gets the most out of his players. All the players around the quarterback, the quarterbacks, the defensive guys, and like you said, you know where they hang the hat on. It's on the defensive side of the ball and playing physical, and that's what they're going to do with Mike Tomlin as their head coach.
Yeah. It's hard to make that transition away from a Ben Roethlisberger.
Oh, yeah.
And not have a losing season. I mean, New Orleans I think they went 7-10 a couple years after Breeze retired. You look at the Patriots, they cratered after Brady left.
Right.
Like, it's hard to do that. I mean, even the Colts with Andrew Luck, like, okay, you had a couple of seasons where, you know, obviously the losing record in 19, but then you have a couple seasons where you're good, and then all of a sudden one season you plop a 4 wins down there. It's hard to do what they've done, especially where that position hasn't been settled.
Well, and I mean, I know this is, you talk about cliche or whatever, but ask every single coach.
Yeah.
What's the biggest thing they say when you win a football game? It's hard to win a game in the NFL. And Mike Tomlin has figured that one out.
Also, ask every single coach, and they'll be like, Mike Tomlin's one of the best coaches.
Exactly.
All right, so let's get to a game preview here, and I want to start with the Colts defense against the Pittsburgh offense, because this is interesting that Justin Fields, 3-0. We're not doing the whole should the Bears have kept Fields, Caleb Williams bit. That's ridiculous. We're 3 games into the season.
Right.
Stop. Anyone who's doing that, stop. But the Steelers are 28th in average yards per play. They're only averaging 4.6 yards per play. They've only turned 25% of their red zone possessions into touchdowns. Yeah. They've only scored 3 touchdowns on offense all season. However, Pittsburgh is 7th on third down. So they're converting their third downs, and they've only turned the ball over once. They have a +4 turnover differential. All right, so let's start on third down. The Colts have struggled on third down, Bill. They're at 50% allowing teams to convert on third down. That's 28th in the NFL. How important is that going to be in this game, getting off the field on third down? And by the way, Bill, the Colts defense is allowing that conversion rate despite having the ninth longest average yards to the sticks on third down.
Wow. Well, you know the Pittsburgh Steelers are going. You know the Pittsburgh Steelers are going to try to run the ball. They want to run the ball with their running backs, with Harris, and don't know if Jalen Warren's going to play. Yeah, he's banged up. Don't know if he's going to play. But either way, they're going to try to run the ball. That's what they want to do. And Justin Fields, he can run the ball as well. Good athlete back there. He can run the ball. So they want to run the ball. They want to try to be successful on first and second down and keep it short on third down, third and short or whatever. I think it's going to be imperative for the Colts to be good on first and second down and definitely be good on third down, because we have to win the time of possession. And if they're continually getting first downs and moving the ball down the field, and then they happen to score in the red zone, that's not going to be good for the Colts, because the Colts aren't going to be able to have the ball, and we need to have as many plays as possible from an offensive standpoint to give us an opportunity to possibly make some explosive plays. Give Jonathan Taylor an opportunity to make the big explosive plays, Anthony Richardson to make the big explosive plays down the field. So I think it's going to be imperative for the Colts to be successful on first and second down, stopping the Pittsburgh Steelers to make it third and long. I know the Colts aren't great at third and long, but I think eventually that number is going to have to turn around for the Colts to become successful on third down.
I think a key for the Colts, and I think on third down, is find where Pat Freiermuth is.
Yep.
Because I think that is very important. We saw it last week with the Bears. Cole Kmet,
they're going to go after it.
10 receptions, and that's an area where I kind of see a very similar offensive game plan, especially on third down, is find out where their tight ends. Pat Freiermuth, one of the probably more underrated tight ends. I think when you look at the upper echelon, I'm not saying he's like top 5, but he's probably in that mix in top 15 to top 10, right in there. Very, very good tight end. So he is a guy that I'm going to kind of target as being able to, when you get them behind the count a little bit, finding where he is on third downs.
The Steelers do some funky stuff in their run game. They run a lot of pony personnel with either Najee Harris or Jalen Warren in the backfield, and also Cordero Patterson.
Yep.
Yeah.
That it's going to be a challenge for this Colts front, because it's going to be a little bit different than what we've seen over the last couple of weeks. Justin Fields, though, he's only averaging 3.2 yards per attempt. So it's not like he's like last year with Chicago, I think he was at like 9 yards per attempt. Like he's not gashing teams, but he's got that in him.
Yes,
like,
exactly.
Like you heard what Trey Sermon said. He said he's probably runs like a 4.33. Like he's got that in him if you are undisciplined. And yeah, I mean, absolutely for me, it's stopping the run. You don't want to let Najee Harris get after you in this game. He's only averaging 3.8 yards per attempt, but they're going to give him the ball. Yep. You know he's going to get the ball. You don't want to get gashed by Cordero Patterson, and then you definitely don't want to get gashed by Justin Fields. With Fields, guys, he's not putting the ball in harm's way. I think that's probably the biggest change from what we saw in Chicago to what we're seeing now. According to Pro Football Focus, he does not have a single turnover-worthy play this year.
Really?
None. Not a single one. He's one of 3 quarterbacks who does not have one of those. Arthur Smith is doing a great job with Justin Fields, where, okay, maybe it's a lot of dink and dunk, but you know what? We are not asking him to do something that he is not good at. They're asking him to do a lot of stuff that he is good at, and it's working so far for the Steelers offense.
And that's a coach that's saying, okay, I'm going to do what I have to do to make your play very successful for this team. He knows what his weaknesses are. He knows what his strengths are. He's playing to his strengths. Dink and dunk, get the ball into the playmaker's hands, and also when you have an opportunity to run the ball. You're a good athlete, you can do that. And that's just a smart offensive coordinator, knowing his personnel, knowing what he has there, and they're playing to their team. That's good complementary football. You know you have one of the better defenses in the National Football League, so let's not put them in a bad situation where we turn the ball over and give the ball to the other team and wear out our defense because we lose the time of possession. So they're just doing a good job, and Justin Fields is doing a good job of just, you know what, I'm taking what they give me. If I have to dump it down, I'll dump it down and let those guys make some plays. So that's smart football, and that's just like I said, we're talking about Mike Tomlin. He's just doing the things he needs to do to win football games. It's not anything fancy, or it might not look great, but at the end of the day, they win football games.
What Arthur Smith is doing, this is kind of going back in the kind of get on your time travel and go back a handful of years, but it's similar to what he did as the coordinator in Tennessee with an early Marcus Mariota. It is, we're going to highlight what you do well, and that's what we're going to do. We're going to make you not put the ball in harm's way, and we're just going to run it through that. And, I mean, ultimately, through 3 games, right now, Justin Fields looks like a completely different quarterback than what we saw in Chicago. And that's, you got to put a lot of credit into Arthur Smith, because he has really tapped into, hey, you know what? Instead of trying to make him do too much, trying to force the ball, let's just kind of tone it back, and that's what's working.
Love that comparison. 2017, Marcus Mariota, there in Tennessee. He averaged 7.1 yards per attempt. That was his lowest average of his career, but they went 9-6 and made the playoffs.
There you go.
So that's good coaching right there.
I mean, exactly, good coaching.
The one thing you do want to be aware of, though, with Justin Fields is while Pittsburgh only has 5, he's only attempted 5 passes that have gone 20 or more yards beyond the line of scrimmage, he's got a rocket.
Oh, he can throw it now.
And the last thing you want to do is get lulled into dink and dunk. You know, he's throwing 68% of his passes short of the sticks. That's the highest rate in the NFL.
Okay.
But you don't want to get lulled into that.
Yeah.
Because if you get a big play action, max protect, and he throws it deep to George Pickens or
that's what I say.
Watch out. That still could be a part of this offense. It's still early. You got to be alerted for that.
You know they have it. You know they have it in their playbook.
Yeah,
to go deep to Pickens or to Austin. So you have to be alert for that at all times.
And I'm glad you said, because those 2 guys, they are explosive players. They can turn it on really, really quick and make a big time play. So those are 2 guys. I mentioned Freiermuth on 3rd down, but definitely keep those 2 guys in your vision, because they can be game breakers as well.
It does feel like a game, though, where rallying and tackling is going to be really important.
Yeah,
Colts defense.
Yes.
Quick shout out to Nick Cross, who's done a great job with that all year. Guy leads the NFL in tackles.
Yeah.
He has been, you don't want your safety to lead the team in tackles necessarily, but man, when he gets an opportunity to make a tackle, he's been making plays. EJ Speed, same thing. Zaire Franklin, those guys, you want them rallying to the ball, because if they are going to throw it short of the sticks, hey, as many guys as you can get to George Pickens, to Pat Freiermuth, to those guys, to keep them short of the sticks once they do catch it. Don't let them get the yak.
No, I'm glad you bring up Nick Cross. I mean, it was probably for him a rough offseason, rough camp, because of all the noise.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it was very, very loud about how they needed to bring in a veteran, and Nick Cross isn't. and he has quieted them, and he has played very, very good football. And it's great to see, because the NFL it is a what did you do for me lately league. You get a guy who got an opportunity early to start, and then it didn't work out, so he goes to being mainly just a special teams guy. Mm-hmm. So him getting that second opportunity, I'm really, really happy for him. For sure.
Still a really young player.
It's still young, exactly.
22 still.
Still a young player.
Young player with some experience.
Yes.
It's really nice to see him kind of ascending. All right, Bill, let's flip it over to the Colts offense versus the Steelers defense. And goodness gracious. What's gracious Pete, what did Shane Steichen say on the wire?
Oh, yeah. What was that? Yeah.
Something like that. They are rolling right now. They are allowing an NFL best 8.7 points per game. They're fourth in yards per play, 4.6 yards per play. They're second in rushing yards per play allowed at 3.5. They're allowing only 21.9% of third downs to be converted. Only 16.7% of opposing red zone possessions have ended in a touchdown, and they're fifth and they have 5 takeaways, which is 6th. Bill, when you're facing a defense that right now does not appear to have a single weakness,
not a single one,
what do you do? What do you try to lean into?
What you lean into is you have to lean into your own strength, meaning what you do as far as from an offensive standpoint, what you do well.
So that's the run game.
So that's the running game. So I think the Colts have to be very good in the run game on first and second down. You can't be third and long against this team because they're going to come after you. So I think if the Colts can be 3rd and 2, 3rd and 3, it opens up the playbook for you. You can do a lot of different things. You can pass the ball to the tight ends. You can pass the ball to the backs, the receivers. You can run the ball with the backs. You can have AR run the ball. So you open up your whole playbook. And I think that's going to be a key for the Colts, is to make sure that, hey, one, we're successful on first and second down, and we have to get first downs on third down if we're in those situations. So that's going to be important. And when you have an opportunity to hit the big play, take it. If it's there, take it, because you know you're going to need it. You know you're going to need to score points. And also, I think it's very imperative for the Colts to win the time of possession. We've talked about the Steelers' offense. They haven't gone downfield. We know they can go downfield with big plays, but I think if maybe you kind of pressure Justin Fields into doing something that he hasn't done this year, not very comfortable with doing, trying to make the big play, trying to play catch-up all the time, then that maybe you will get him to make some mistakes, maybe throw some interceptions, some careless passes, and then you can also go downfield and score some points. And I think you need to be very, 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 very good in the red zone. Be good in the red zone. Once you get in there, we got to score. We got to score points. We got to take advantage of those opportunities when you get in the red zone.
I know you can't really draw the same comparison because, both teams are different, but in the Week 15 game last year, you put up 30 points on the Steelers. So
you're ahead of me because I just pulled that up on my.
I was kind of cheating. But so I'm not saying that you could say, oh, well, you've done it, you can put that. But ultimately, there is a little bit of recent tape you've put on film that you have been able to, in some ways, attack. Now, everything's different. They've got some different pieces out there, and it's going to be a tall task because to this point, you mentioned the eight points a game. Nobody has scored double digits on this team through 3 weeks. Not even a single team has put up 10 points. That is a wild stat. Even if it's 2 games you do that. They've done that through 3 weeks. It's very impressive what this defense has done. But I do think you can kind of draw back to say, you know what we did last year, we could take a little bit of that. And, listening to Rick Venturi this week on Inside Football, he knows the game defensively a lot better than I. He says to attack Joey Porter Jr. So, hey, Shane Steichen, hey, Jim Bob, I'm going to just take one out of Rick's book and say attack Joey Porter Jr., and then maybe that's what you're going to do.
I do that all the time, by the way. I hear something on Inside Football with Rick Venturi, and I say it on the radio, and I get it out there before Rick goes on, because I go on before him. Look at how smart I am. Usually I credit him. I always credit him. That game, though, So the Colts against the Steelers last year, that was the Trey Sermon, Tyler Goodson game.
Yes.
Where Sermon averaged 5.2 yards per carry, Goodson averaged 6.3 yards per carry. Those guys combined to carry the ball 28 times.
Yeah.
And they were efficient and they were explosive. Through the air, Gardner Minshew in that game threw 3 touchdowns. Now, Minka Fitzpatrick did leave that game with an injury in the second quarter. Mm-hmm. Notable there. But you had TJ Watt out there. You had Cam Hayward out there. The one guy who is not going to be out there for the Steelers this week is Alex Highsmith.
Yes.
The edge rusher opposite TJ Watt in this defense. He's really good.
Very good, yeah.
A lot of sacks for him. Not having him out there, that does seem like just a little thing to keep in mind. Now, the rest of that Steelers line, Keanu Benton's awesome.
Oh, my God.
Like, they've got some other dudes there. Larry Ogunjobi on the interior is having a fantastic season. But on the edges, you have maybe a bit of a weakness. Oh, and then, by the way, one of the best defensive players in the NFL.
I'm trying to jinx him. That's what I'm trying to do right now. Okay, I'm trying to jinx you, TJ, but he's half a sack away from 100 on his career. He's at 99.5 heading into this. And that just kind of shows you, I mean, you saw it so many years in Houston with JJ. There is a...
To quote John Schifrin, the White Sox announcer, history can wait.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah. Oh, that's nice. How are them White Sox feeling in your eyes there, JJ?
Hey, history can wait.
But anyway, I mean, you saw how good J.J. Watt was for so long in Houston, but there is an argument that TJ is right on par, if not maybe better, than what J.J. Watt has done in his career. So TJ is man, there's no good way to shut him down, but you've got to just limit him as much as you can.
The thing you need to do on offense, I remember when I was with the Colts and we were playing the Buffalo Bills, every play we knew where Bruce Smith was.
Oh, yeah.
Every single play. You point out, he's right here. He's at the end. Okay, no, he's over the guard. Nope. We literally were pointing to him. So now you got to do the same thing with TJ. You have to know where he's at. Most of the part, you're not going to know where he's at. He's going to be over there by Braden Smith, for the most part. But he can move around, and you have to make sure you have a good game plan for him against TJ Watt, because he is a game wrecker.
Oh, man.
By far. He is a game wrecker. So I'm sure the Colts will have a game plan for him and what to do depending on where he's at on the football field, and knowing that he's going to try to wreck the game. And, of course, on down distance, things are going to be different. But you have to know where the man's at, because he is one heck of a player.
And real quick, Herbig's going to play probably in Highsmith's spot.
Yep. Yeah.
Last week he came in and had 2 sacks.
Pretty good,
Pretty solid.
Pretty good guy.
The football hipster thing that I'm looking for is on the interior. Cam Hayward's awesome.
Oh, he's
yes.
so good.
Solid.
So he is Pro Football Focused highest graded defensive lineman against the run so far this year.
Okay.
Oof.
You got him. You got Larry Ogunjobi.
Yes.
You got Keanu Benton. Those guys on the interior of that line against Quentin Nelson, Ryan Kelly, Will Fries, who are playing as good as any interior trio in the NFL right now. That, to me, is where this game might get decided.
Yeah.
Is on the interior.
By far.
Because the Colts run a lot of inside zone, and it doesn't always have to go through the interior. But if the Colts are winning at Garden Center, and you're not letting Cam Hayward wreck your run game, that, to me, that's how you can start opening things up for Jonathan Taylor, for maybe a little bit of Trey Sermon in there. That's where it's going to happen. But Will Fries, what a season he's having. Like, that guy, I know I've talked about it a couple times, but he went from being last year, he's good, he's not a weak link, to Will Fries, he keeps playing like this, he's making the Pro Bowl.
No, he has really taken a ton of strides over the last couple of years. And I mean, that offensive line as a whole, I don't want to speak too soon, but they are comparable to the way they were playing a handful of years ago when it was just, run the damn ball. They're getting close to being at that level of offensive line play. And it's so good because you've seen the ups and downs with that group. And that's the thing for me that's so positive is you really haven't changed too much of it. For the most part, your core of Braden, Q, and Ryan, they've been there. And they have gone through the highs and the lows. So watching them come out on top has been a lot of fun. But you mentioned Will Fries. Definitely doesn't get the credit he deserves because he has been so solid on that offensive line.
For Anthony Richardson, Bill, in this game, smart decision-making is going to kind of be paramount, I think. Because Minka Fitzpatrick back there, he he is liable to jump something.
Wily vet.
And that is not a guy who you want to have around the ball when it's sailing or it might not be on target. That is the last guy you want around the ball in those situations.
Yeah, good decisions are going to be very important in this game. It's important in every game, but I think in this game with the Pittsburgh Steelers defense, how they play defense, the personnel they have, you have to make good decisions out there. You have to get the ball in the right spots, put the ball away from the defender that's covering a receiver, get the ball on time to the receivers, and just make good decisions. Sometimes throwing the ball into the stands is not a bad decision.
Right.
So you just make good decisions out there, and you know what? You want to move the ball down the field, yes. We want to control the clock. We want to have long, sustained drives. But sometimes, you know what? Throw the ball in the stands. Rigoberto is a pretty good punter.
Oh, man.
So, he's having a year.
Great.
So, you know what? Pin the Steelers back in their own end. Let our defense work. And then maybe, you do get some good field position because maybe they don't, maybe you get a good punt return for us. And then after that, you got good field position and you march down the field.
I didn't get to use this on Tuesday's pod because we didn't have time for it, but I had some numbers on Rigo.
Man.
I know it's punter talk, which is why we're saving it for the end of the podcast. But round of applause for Rigoberto Sanchez. He's second in the NFL in net punting average at 48.5 yards per punt. 10 of his 11 punts have landed inside the 20-yard line and been downed or tackled inside the 20-yard line. Only 3 of his punts have been returned, and returners have gained 4 yards on them.
4. I mean, we have known kind of the hidden gem we have in our punter for a long time, but I've noticed a little difference in him. I think Brian Mason has a ton of energy on the sideline. It's a lot of fun to watch, and that's kind of what I've been paying attention to because every time Rigo's been punting, I watch when he comes off, and him and Brian Mason have this big, they both jump up in the air and they have this high five, and that's what it's been. Like, that punting game right now, it is, you need to use it. That's a great point, Bill. I didn't even think about that until right now. Using Rigo might be one of your hidden specialties this weekend, kind of a key to winning because he is such a threat right now.
When points are hard to come by.
Yes.
Yeah.
And punters matter more.
And making an offense that's led by Justin Fields.
Yes.
We're not at all throwing him under the bus at all, but make him drive the length of the field. That was the key in last Sunday's victory is make Caleb Williams drive down the field. Do not give them anything easy, and that's a good recipe for success.
Make them have a 10 to 12 play drive and get down the field and see if they can score. More than likely, there's going to be a mistake made somewhere in that drive. So that's when hopefully you can capitalize on that mistake from a defensive standpoint and hopefully get the ball back or put them in a third and long situation where they can't get a first down and then you do get the ball back.
If Pittsburgh is not going to be explosive on offense, then it's imperative that they start drives at the 15-yard line instead of the 35-yard line.
Yes.
Because,
exactly.
I mean, that's a difference of if you're averaging 4 yards per play, that's a 5-play difference.
Yeah.
Right there.
Yeah, exactly.
If you're averaging 5 yards a play, that's a 4-play difference, whatever it might be. That's a lot of plays. That is a series of downs that you have to now go through and execute on to move the ball downfield.
Yep.
Love it. Love it in the pod on some Rigo talk.
Rigo, man, he has been great. He deserves all the flowers. He's been great.
Another guy who can be in line for a little Pro Bowl.
Yes.
Yeah, it's September. I don't know why I'm talking Pro Bowl.
It's early, but he's on his way. He's on his way right now if he continues.
All right. Well, we are on our way out of this episode of the official Colts podcast here on the Colts Audio Network and on YouTube. Tune into us back here on our YouTube page Sunday night. It'll be Bill Brooks and myself breaking down Colts and Steelers. We'll also have that, of course, on the Colts Audio Network, wherever you get your podcasts. If you like this podcast, you like myself, you like Casey, mostly you like Bill, give us a 5-star review on Apple Podcasts or Spotify, wherever you get your podcasts. We love seeing those come in. We'll talk to you next week. It'll be Matt Taylor back here in the big chair on the Thursday edition of the official Colts podcast. Until then, so long. Thanks for listening. Thank you for watching.